Hey everyone, we now need to find sources for our annotated bibliography. If that's the case, you're probably going to use a database since it's online and available. For this video then, I'm going to provide you some helpful hacks and tips to make the process a lot easier. To start, I recommend using OneSearch, or at least a database from the library page. I've linked OneSearch to our essential links on the homepage. Why not use Google Scholar? Well, first, you're paying tuition money, and a portion of that tuition money goes towards the library, which pays yearly licensures to access databases. I'm a proponent that I should use what my money goes towards, so I would recommend using a database that you pay for. Additionally, Google Scholar has some faults in it that just make it more unhelpful than it is helpful. The first is that Google Scholar has a paywall, or doesn't filter for paywall, whereas all the databases through the library and OneSearch have no paywall. This just means that in Google Scholar, you might find an article that you really like, you click on it, and then it'll be like, you need to pay $25 for it. Don't pay money for that. You're already paying money for OneSearch. Another thing is that OneSearch just has better credibility. When you open OneSearch and you search through it, you can then filter your results, and you can filter by subject or more specific content. Whereas Google Scholar, it just like dumps all the information at you, at your feet. So it's kind of hard to sift through. With that is filtering and sourcing for better quality through OneSearch. So Google Scholar, the way it functions is that it skims Google results for keywords that also tend to be like relate to an academic keyword, whereas the database is just like a depository for journal articles. So would you rather skim Google for what might be an academic article, or go through a database which guarantees it's going to be like an academic article? Along with that too is that Google Scholar, when it skims for articles, it might find the PDF of a real article, but it finds it not in the journal itself, but on like a sketchy website or someone's blog, like a blog from like Latvia. And if you click on it, you're going to get like a virus, or it's going to be some sketchy download. So it's smarter and safer just to use OneSearch. So you've opened up OneSearch and you need to search something. My next advice then is to use search terms and effective search terms, because this will get you results you actually want. The first part of that is what I think is called Boolean. I've never actually had to describe them, but Boolean terms, these are just words that are in all capitals that aren't literal. They're more used for the database's algorithm and like how they find sources. So what I use often is AND in all capitals. When you use AND in all capitals between two search terms, it tells the algorithm you only want articles that have both those terms. They have to have both those terms. So it really reduces that pool of options to exactly what you want. I also use not in all capital letters a lot, because sometimes I'll get results for like medicine or like science that I don't need. So I say like not science or not medicine. The algorithm will get rid of all those articles that deal with medicine, so I just get what I want. Another tip is I use quotation marks all the time. When you use quotation marks in your search, you're telling the algorithm, I want articles that have this exact word exactly as it's written. This way it guarantees like those words are mentioned and you have a better chance of finding the article you want. Last advice within search terms is making sure you prepare synonyms for your search terms. With the way an algorithm works, where it's like looking for the keywords, it's all about finding the right combination. So there are some words that are better than others. For example, in this search I did, I tried it with the word racism and I got like no results. But when I changed racism to bias, I got a ton more results that were still relevant for my paper. So it's all about trying new words or brainstorming new words. Okay, the next thing is you've searched and you've found like your results page. We need to clean that page up to sources that are actually accessible. So the first thing you should do is select the filter full text online, which essentially guarantees it's going to be a PDF that you can download as soon as you click on it and read it. Second, you should click scholarly and peer review, so you know that all the sources you're getting are from some sort of academic source and therefore they're more credible. Next, I highly recommend restricting the publication date range to after 2000 and better yet after 2010. The reason is I don't want to see something from the 1900s. That's so outdated. I think about papers that say the World Wide Web, or as I'll use an example in another video, I've had a student turn in a paper about brain size that was from the 1800s. Why? not relevant. Don't even bother. So just restrict your date range to something that's more recent. And then I added articles aren't the only thing you can use as a source. If you want to use books, all you need to do is unclick full text online, and instead under content type, there's one that says book or book chapter. You would click that instead, and then the OneSearch database will search through the library catalog. Okay, so we've done that, we've filtered our results, and we actually are getting articles we want to read. When you find a title that seems relevant, you don't need to download it yet. You can read the abstract or the keywords. So I click preview or read more, and it will give me the summary, or the abstract is essentially just a summary. If you read that and you think, okay, this does seem relevant, you might also check the subjects or keywords then and see if it matches with what you want to talk about. If both those work, you can download the article and save it. I also recommend when you see keywords or the subject terms, stealing some of those for when you do a new search. Essentially, the keywords and subject terms are what the computer uses to categorize articles. So when you're searching, it's essentially asking the computer, find everything that's labeled or categorized with these terms. So if you know what terms the computer or the algorithm is using, you can better find the source. Next, and probably my favorite feature of OneSearch, or some databases, it's not just OneSearch, is saving your article. So I found this article, I want to keep it, and if I download it, it's probably going to get lost into the hundreds of files I have in downloads. So instead, I'm going to save it. On the result that showed up, there are 4 icons in the corner that will help you save it. The first is, it looks like 2 chain links together, and that is so you get a stable URL or permalink. This essentially means that if you logged out of your Ball State account or went home, you could still access the article even though you're not logged in. So I like to do this and just store them in a Word doc. Next, there's an icon that looks like an envelope, and that's to email it to you. So you can be like, I like this, and then it'll email it directly to your inbox. Then the last is a little folder icon, which is my favorite. So with the email icon, every time you find an article, you would put it in your inbox. But then that would just clutter up your inbox. So instead, you can save it to this temporary folder on OneSearch. And after you gather 5 or 8 sources, you go to the very top of the page where it has a folder icon again with the number of sources you have. If you click on that, you can then click to email that entire list to yourself. It saves so much space and time. And then you just go to your email and you're like, what were my articles again? I love it. It makes it so easy. If you don't want to use the folder or the link, I recommend also you can do a DOI number. When you look at the preview, they should have a DOI. It's the same as a permalink, but not to the article itself, but to a source with the article. So that's just an option to consider. So that was my advice for using OneSearch, but it's not the only option you have. Here are some other library sources that I've used and really recommend. The first is interlibrary loan. So if you find something or hear about something you want to use, but we don't have access to it, you can file interlibrary loan. I do this a lot for photocopies. So if I don't want to check out a big giant book, I can request through interlibrary loan a PDF photocopy of just the chapter I want. It's beautiful. Second, I love the librarian consultation service. So you can book an appointment with a librarian. Our syllabus has the link for that, but you get to essentially meet one-on-one with someone whose entire doctorate degree is in finding sources. It's a guaranteed person to find you sources. It's great. Other sources, you can use the archives or the digital repository, which has a lot of material about Ball State, especially old material. The Ball State hosts or Ball State, the Bracken Library hosts tons of workshops about like citing sources or using technology or accessing things. So highly relevant to check those out. Canopy. Canopy is essentially like Netflix, but for documentaries and like, what's the word? Like recent movies that are like talked about critical issues. It's free for Ball State students, so like, why not watch a documentary? And then lastly, the GIS Maps Room or Lab gives access to atlases, but then it gives access to like maps of information and data. So they have like a map about like opioid use in Muncie. They have maps about like famous female leaders in the US or like deforestation or climate change across the world. So if you want some like visual data, that's a great source. You just can email them, or they have links on their website page for how to find that information. My last thing is this is just a handful of other resources not affiliated with the library. I highly recommend Pew Research. It's a great source of data that is relevant and current. So they tackle issues that are happening right now. So if you've picked a topic that's in the news, it probably has Pew Research about it. So I'd recommend checking that out.